Hey, shalom, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, call hello Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Rakakadash. And again, double honors go out to the bishops, the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone, who continue to deliver His truth themselves out on the highways and byways. As it says, teachers wouldn't be hidden anymore, and they are not. Salutations to the fellow Akim out there on the highways and byways across four corners of this earth, pushing this truth in all honesty and sincerity, while trying to, at the same time, Spirit is with them, wake up the remaining hopeful elect. This is Nama with the DC camp, and this is going to be a video about our enemies, and in particular Moab. All right, it's nice to see them. They never say anything about how, until the last 2 or so years, when they were getting their asses handed to them, with street attacks and the like, after this Wuhan thing by a certain former president, who it looks like they are trying to make sure he does not get back in office, because they anticipate great difficulties if he does. That's why he had to go. All right. And I hope you Jakes out there, specifically you so-called Negroes, you have to be aware that you are going to get the blame for having this idiot that's in there now. Because guess who was the majority of the vote for that fucker? All right. Being that a lot of you are lifelong Democrats, slaves on the plantation. It never, you just don't get it, but I don't want to go off on that. It's a whole nother video. But again, these people that, because they were over here, in particular Moab, they were, I don't want to say forced, but when I read this article, you're gonna get, hey, this devil, this so-called white man, this Edomite, well, he really set this system up against Jake, against us, and it's forcing the other. Well, I don't want to say force, but they had to make a decision. Wink, wink. You'll see. Let me get into it. It says, lessons from black and Chinese relations in the Deep South. And this is an article from a couple of weeks ago. I forgot I was going to do it like then. I forgot all about it, and I just ran across it today while I was searching my things I have, saved up. And it says, Mississippi Triangle is a 1983 documentary about the black, white, and Chinese communities in the Mississippi Delta region, which I rewatched the other day, prompted by a message from a friend. It is one of a plethora of works in film and art that show, contrary to popular perception, that the South has never had just two racial groups. The documentary had 3 directors, one from each of the above-mentioned groups: Christine Choi, Alan Siegel, and Worth Long, each with their own crew. 2 members of Long's team, Charles Burnett and Arthur Jaffa, went on to have illustrious careers as filmmakers. But to the contemporary eye, Mississippi Triangle is a humble, if artful, production. The narrative arc is fuzzy, and so is the footage, but still it resonates. It begins with a black man singing Amazing Grace, then pans through the Delta landscape, piney woods, and shotgun houses. The story is told through voices heavy with the distinctive vowels of the Deep South. A clear assertion is made: chattel slavery and cotton production are the foundations of this place. And that is so very true. A clear assertion is, I already read that. It says, Chinese people came as workers, some on the railroad, others in the fields, yet ultimately became situated in local economies as grocers. One white woman comments that the Chinese always seem to hold themselves apart from white people. You need a black, well, then the mayor of Mayersville, Mississippi, a black woman who was once a sex worker and a plantation worker, and then an organizer with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC. It says in contrast that the Chinese people were kinder than white folks. and there was no conclusion about who they were. They spoke Chinese and they were Mississippians. The lesson of the documentary is crystallized in the story of Martha Lum, the child plaintiff in Gong Lum v. Rice, a case decided by the United States Supreme Court in 1927. The Lum children had been attending white schools in Mississippi, but in a wave of renewed anti-Chinese sentiment fueled by the 1924 Immigration Act, which banned all immigration from Asia, they were expelled and told they must attend the schools for African American children. They fought back all the way to the Supreme Court. The court sided with Mississippi, declaring that excluding Chinese children from white schools was not a violation of the 14th Amendment. The Lum family was told that their children could either attend black schools or create their own Chinese school. Anywhere was fine as long as it wasn't white space. See? I teach Gong Lum v. Rice in my class on race and American legal history. It was a Jim Crow case that affirmed the exclusion of all non-white people, and not just black people, from white spaces. But its particulars are important too. And this is what Mississippi Triangle shows. See, this is why I'm doing this, because all the wickedness is coming out, just seeping through. He can't keep it shut up anymore. Telling what these Edomites have done through their legislation, other than being mostly direct, especially in the South with our people. They weren't so slick. When you came up north, that's when you, like how the Democrats choose to deal with us. They real slick. They all, rubbing elbows with us, but at the same time they're stabbing us in the back. The down south is more direct. I don't like you, nigger. Fuck you. Stay your ass over there. Come over here. We're gonna have a problem. All right. Two different approaches. Neither one, unless is, they're both fucked up. But in any case, what does the scripture say? Be not ignorant of any. Let me get that real quick. That is Sirach 5:15. This is Sirach 5:15. It says, be not ignorant of anything in a great matter or a small. And you should be motivated, I'm talking to Jake, to know these things. All right. That way, but what's the majority of our people? Because of a lot of Jake were raised by the black woman, and they know that the way she was trained, all right, she wants to be part of this world, and she's going to train the children, particularly the Jake male, to go along, the Willie Lynch letter, etc. That sort of thinking. How dealing with sheep. That's more or less how we're being dealt with. The female sheep and all that, but in any case, Psalms 83, they made sure, whoever came over here, and I'm going to get to that, all these people come over here. Again, I don't want to use that force word, but it's, what's another word? It's something in one of Richard Pryor's stand-ups. What was his album? Was it Bicentennial Nigger? I think it was. So it had to be 76. And I remember I was growing up and I heard that. And it was I believe the segment was called The New Niggers. And hey, it's a spirit, but although different, slightly different, it was dealing with the Vietnamese, after the Vietnamese War, the fall of Saigon, immigrants come over here, yada, yada, yada. And there was a particular funny part, and I'm not going to go into it, but, it's always someone else new, and who suffers? It's us. Because they use us as a springboard, and then they shoot off, and who's left? Of course, still at the bottom. There you have it. And that's why you have to want to choke Jake, because they're in there marching for our enemies. Haven't learned a damn thing. The latest one is this BLM, that smokescreen for the LGBT movement, and you see them they do. What did Biden just pass? What, some executive order protecting these motherfuckers? What is it, Title 9? Man. And this is on the heels of something else he did earlier. Wow, being this is their month and all, you know. But continuing on, it says Chinese American commentators in the film describe the injustice of Jim Crow and how they were ultimately beneficiaries. What did I just get through saying? How they were ultimately beneficiaries of the civil rights movement. Everybody was except us. Man. When desegregation came, their fortune changed in school and business. And yet, they also describe being hesitant to get too close to black people. Teenager Linda Wing explains how, even though she grew up with black people, her family doesn't want her to date black boys. Her speech pattern, interestingly, is not only Southern, but it is black and Southern. And she says she has nothing against black folks. She grew up with black folks, but her reality is that she don't have nobody to be with. So it looks like her family is ostracizing her because of her friendship with Jake. It says the color line of the society, and strange thing is she might she might be a Jake. It says the color line of the society and her family's insistence that she not become immersed in the black community leaves her lonely. So she's like in between. She's like, well, I won't, I get along with them, but shit, family is telling me don't do it. Oh boy, they big on those Eastern cultures. What the family says usually is what goes. It says more melancholy still is the voice of elderly Arlene Hen, the daughter of a black mother and Chinese father. She describes in harrowing detail the debt bondage of the sharecropping system. Oh yes, how akin it is to slavery. Viewers are reminded that by 1983 the laws have changed, but the economy not so much. Workers in catfish plants, like those on cotton plantations, aren't even scraping by, and they are overwhelmingly black. They are too poor to patronize the Chinese-owned groceries, which in turn suffer. So you see how this devil, he's got everybody all twisted and, at each other. It's this system. It's just this pit that we're in. And to be in the frame of mind, not like Jake is now, you want to be in that Isaiah 51:14, the captive exile hastening, all right, that he should be loosed, all right, that you want to be in that frame of mind. You want to get the fuck up out of here. You want this place done away with. Continuing on, it says young Chinese Mississippians are described as departing for big cities. An interracial relationship between two groups that was forged during Jim Crow has fallen apart. In the Mississippi of 1983, Arlene Hen's story is juxtaposed with that of other Chinese families whose children have attended white schools and who have created Chinese American religious communities. She tells her story to her granddaughters, black girls with monolith eyes and heavy dark hair, and notes that because she is biracial mixed with black, she cannot be buried in the Chinese cemetery. See, again, this is punishment. You remember Nehemiah, the 13th chapter. Nehemiah, and this was the law. Didn't want our children, what does it say, Deuteronomy 7 at the top, all right, and the other scriptures. We weren't supposed to mix with these other nations. And this last one here, her father is a Moabite, her mother, by all accounts, is a Jake. So I don't know whether she knows it or not, but of course you are what your father is. She better hope somewhere in his lineage. All right, but this is what this is what Nehemiah was talking about. All right, it leads to nothing but confusion. It says racism, like now she can't even, they don't want to even bury it in her people's cemetery. It says racism is not just a matter of animus. It is produced by stratification. It is made by a social architecture of history, human relationships, laws, and the economy. It would be easy to watch this documentary and naively wonder, why are Chinese Mississippians discriminating against black people when they themselves are discriminated against? And this is the point I was hinting at earlier, and it's going to get into it. He says the documentary's useful revelation is that when people are stratified, those who are neither at the top nor the bottom work mightily to preserve their position in the middle. The architecture is designed that way. Again, this system was designed. This piece of shit Edomite, this so-called white man, this is what he did. Those of us who are not middle to upper class and white, yet are also not quite at the bottom due to our class, ethnicity, or education, are in the vulnerability of our status and the markability of our privileges, incentivized to sustain hierarchies. In other words, is there to their advantage if they just play along. Don't hang with them niggers. Don't do it. Being that she's from Mississippi, they say niggers. Alright, don't you be hanging around with them niggers. Alright. Among African Americans like me that can show up in the form of anti-immigrant politics, xenophobia, and classism, for others it can rather easily manifest as prejudice against African Americans, particularly African Americans who have been poor for generations. You must help us maintain the status quo when it comes to our niggers now. Alright, don't get too uppity. As one of the Chinese American commentators in the film notes, black people are so stigmatized, it feels imperative to maintain a distance from them. How about that? Years ago, I coined a term about how, at a personal level, we might reject these inclinations. Critical exceptionalism. I used it to describe the way we might use our not quite at the bottom social occasions to expose injustice. Or, as I've said in another way, be critical at the sight of our own privilege. And that brings me to something else I've been thinking about, the work of photographer Baldwin Lee. It exemplifies critical exceptionalism and so much more. Again, the pride of these devils. This is what, especially when Trump was in office, it became all too clear. How he, when traveling abroad with his arrogance, which what brought to the forefront. This is what the world sees when they think of Americans. The exceptionalism. We're above everybody. Wow. In the same year that Mississippi Triangle was released, Lee, a Chinese-American professor of photography at the University of Tennessee, set off on a trip across 2,000 miles of the American South. MIT and Yale educated, he settled in Knoxville and became the first director of the photography program at UT. He was already recognized as a gifted artist, and he has been a celebrated professor for decades. During that trip that began nearly 40 years ago, he took up what might seem to be unexpected subjects. Black folks, and particularly poor black folks. Casey Gerald, a brilliant black Southern writer who published an essay about Lee last year. It will be included in the book Baldwin Lee, coming from Hunters Point Press this fall, has noted that this is not voyeuristic work. Rather, its intimacy proves that he earned the trust of his subjects. I agree. Walker Evans was one of Lee's teachers. Like Evans, Lee has a sensitive eye for both poverty and dignity. But Lee's Southern exposure wasn't overwhelmingly white, as it was in Evans' classic, Let Us Now Praise Famous Men. Quite the contrary, Lee is a witness to those at the bottom of U.S. stratification. In their refusal to swallow that status, in one image, little girls are outfitted in their Sunday best while standing on the porch of a dilapidated shotgun house in a rural Mississippi community that has no sewage system. Pristinely dressed, tenderly cared for children live where sewage runs in the open. That is a South I know. Lead subjects, often children, pose aware of their own elegance or grace or beauty. The work is political because it exposes the violence of poverty inherited from the plantation economy past, but it is most of all attentiveness to the composure of his subjects that is echoed masterfully in the composition of his shots. A lean Georgia woman with what in another context might be called a patrician slouch generally carries a bouquet of collard greens. She looks delicate, but her thickly veined hands are clearly strong. In Miss Fulton's kitchen in Natchez, Mississippi, everything in the room is in a state of disrepair, but the cornflake box is covered with faces. A little white boy in a Robin Hood costume, a black woman, an Asian woman, and I don't know what that is, and a Latino baseball player are arranged quilt-like on a table. It looks to me like some kind of cultural bricolage wallpaper. But it says, we are a motley assortment of people in the United States. Our relations are not tidy, not in their beauty, nor in their disastrous disaffection and cruelty. It matters for us to witness today the daily violence experienced by Asian Americans, what I just hinted at the very top. It says now it's like they care, but they've been aware of what's been going on all along. All right. It says the dispossession of indigenous people, the indecency of immigration and detention policies, and so on. Talking about the Northern Kingdom, Issachar down in the South. All right, along the border. It said we should celebrate our capacity to find love and common ground across differences and feel shame. But this is the thing. Let me get another scripture here, because this devil, he loves to capitalize and exploit our people to the point where, this is Psalms, let's see, 62 and 4. Psalm 62 and 4. Remember, we must be at the bottom. Jake must be at the very bottom. This is Psalm 62 and 4. It says, they being the nation of Edom, the so-called white man, only consult to cast us down from his excellency, from our excellency. They delight in lies. They bless with their mouth, but they curse inwardly. You can't believe or trust in anything this piece of shit white man says. Alright? Nothing should remind you that more than each and every election cycle. He makes all these bullshit ass promises, and yet nothing ever changes. It never benefits us, the ones who need it the most, and he knows this. But he'll hold hands with you, he'll shake your hand, he'll come to you, your churches, and talk all that bullshit. As it turns out, everybody else gets more or less what they want, but where's Jake? And now with all this gentrification going on, you know, the once so proud city of Washington, D.C., which used to celebrate in the fact that what they call Chocolate City. Oh man, as I heard one, being this is the month of June, that damn pride shit, a couple of weeks ago they had that parade, and I heard one of them gumps walking up the street by me. I was eating, and he came out of his mouth, he said, these are our streets now. See, but Jake, you made it so easy for these motherfuckers with all this drugs and shit. Hell, every time you turn on the news, before I even moved up here, all you heard was about DC being lit the fuck up with gunfire over the drug wars and shit. Their plan worked to perfection. You see, these devils thinking decades, shit like that. They love planning decades ahead, so they knew. And it's so much shit being built up here, you can't even, like me, for instance, I'd been in certain areas in years, and I couldn't even, when passing by, even recognize them. They got all these condos and shit built, and still building. So yeah, people here were so proud, not realizing this was never going to be yours anyway. This is the nation's cap. This is the seat of these American Edomites' power. You were foolish enough to believe that this was yours. Again, a whole different video. I'm not going to go off on a tangent there, but how gullible Jake is. And they know this. Everybody knows this. Oh, and it goes, let's see. It said, it matters for us to witness today the daily violence experienced by Asian Americans, the horrific persistence of anti-black racism, the dispossession of indigenous people, the indecency of immigration and detention policies, and so on. We should celebrate we should celebrate our capacity to find love and common ground across differences. No, we can't do that because we don't belong together. All right? And feel shame when we step on the necks of those at the bottom while taking a shine to those at the top. See? But it's too late for all that. You know, you were right there, and it's good that you spilt the beans, but hey, you're not our people. Bottom line is that. It is what it is. So you stay on over there with Esau, and 2/3 of our people are going to get, sharing that ass kicking. All right. It says, and importantly, we shouldn't be so sanguine in thinking that greater diversity in any place, or the browning of America, as some call it, means that we will treat people fairly. All right. And that's another thing that's really hurt our people, this so-called diversity bullshit, because at the end of the day, it weakens us, and it hurts us more than anybody else. Again, how it was designed. All right, it says, we've been trained in the exact opposite way. The work of witnessing might make us better, or at least more honest, whatever. So just to, you gotta remember, it's like Psalms 83 at the end there, around 6, yeah it is. It tells you all your enemies, all right? Verse 3, it says, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people. Actually, I started 2. It says, below thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, meaning us, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. Here are the enemies, the tabernacles of who's number 1? Edom. And the Ishmaelites, those fucking Arabs, and Moab, who we've been talking about in this article, aka Chinese, and the Hagarenes, Gebal and Ammon, that's the Japanese, and Amalek. All right, and Edomite, mainly those that pretend to be Jews, stole our identity. They're really the ones that run the world. They're the elite banking families, etc., etc. The Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Those are, I believe, with the Hagarenes, those are Hamites, Canaanites. All right. Oh boy. So there you have it. I'm gonna stop it there. That's the point. Once again, lessons from black and Chinese relations in the Deep South. He bring everybody in here, and they, end up assisting them, whether they are aware of it or not. A little bit. No, I'm not giving anybody a benefit of the doubt, but they know instinctively how to maintain a certain order. Like I hinted at earlier, it's in your best interest, all right, to help us maintain the status quo. Wink, wink. And they do. Hey, so hopefully whoever views this is edified. That's what we do here at Great Millstone. Filter everything through the scriptures. All right, so hey, with that, hey, shalom.